To say that we coming here, my husband and myself, we're really loving every bit of Lucknow. I had no intention of coming here, but after the short visit, I'm sure we'll be back. And I think last night at the expressions of Muharram, it made me feel really, really proud to be an Anglo-Indian and to be an Indian above everything else, because the rich culture, the intensity of communities, the love for one another just stood out. Even though I didn't understand everything that was being sung or said, you could feel the intensity of being Indian and of being part of a country as diverse as ours. So thank you to Sanatkada, Madhavi, Askari. I think the Mahendras and Naqvis and all these kind of people are what keep culture alive in our country. And I'm sure all of us are privileged to be sitting here and sharing stuff about our community. So basically, who is an Anglo-Indian? As per the Constitution of India, Article 366(2), it says an Anglo-Indian means a person whose father or male progenitor is or was of European descent, born to parents habitually resident in India and not settled here for any temporary purpose. So you're either born an Anglo-Indian or you're not an Anglo-Indian. And it goes on the male progenitor line. So that's the basic definition of who an Anglo-Indian is. I think I'll pass the mic down to the others to add to that.
With that delightful sound of the water gushing outside to act as the background music. I think we need to organize this 15-20 minutes in a way that we'll be able to get something across in a manner that is a little more organized. Fortunately, we don't have a script. Fortunately, we don't have any broad outlines that, look, these are the things that are going to be discussed. Now, why I say it's fortunate? Because we can make up the rules as we move along. And come on, damn it, I'm the principal, so I can make up rules, all right? So, I know that well. So, while we will start with introductory remarks, just as Vinisha has just now, okay? From there, we will see if discussion is generated between us, and thereafter we throw this open to the house, which will be the more interesting thing. Why I say the more interesting thing is because, and this is my opening remark, as an Anglo-Indian, I am seen today more as a curiosity than as a minority. Right? Who are these people? Right? So, are these the ones who wear those short skirts? Is what we were told when we were growing up in the 60s. But today, you go down Hazratganj and the ultra short skirts have left the Anglo-Indians way in the shade. Okay, and you can see Vinisha is very flashily dressed in what is most appropriate, okay, as a bridesmaid for a wedding as well, alright? So who are these Anglo-Indians? Are these the ones who eat pork curry? Yes, we do, and we love it, alright? Are these the same ones, alright, who drink? Yes, we do, and we've taught you to do it as well, alright? Are these the ones who hold women and dance on the dance floor very publicly? Yes, we do, and we get photographed doing it as well. So these are some of the prejudices, some of the images, some right, some wrong, some in between, like all communities are. And of course, when you are in a minority, anything that you do which is a little deviant is immediately going to be classified as symbolic of the community itself. So therefore, that's the first statement which I have to make. The second statement which I have to make is, any minority always seems to have a chip on its shoulder. Any minority. We have the largest minority in India, which is the minority of Islam. Come on, there's more than a chip on its shoulder, there are whole trees on the shoulder, all right? So they're forever complaining about something, all right? So therefore, if the Anglo-Indian whimpers now and then, It's not very surprising because, well, when you're small, you do tend to cry a little more. Not that it's the nicest thing to do, but there is a minority syndrome that we need to address, and this is where cultures and communities come together to help each other. There will always be pulls and pressures, but that's the way in which we move on. I'd like to add to what Vinisha said. I am very proud to be an Anglo-Indian. Of course, I know no other identity. I'm very proud to be an Anglo-Indian. I never, even from early childhood, have ever felt that it was something which I would need not to talk about and need to compete with the rest of the, in inverted commas, general category, because when I was growing up, we never knew of such words, right? We just grew up. So we grew up in the way we are, we're confident in the way we are, and we would love to be able to tell you a little more about this unique identity we have. I move on this to George.
Good morning, everyone. Namaskar. Adab. If there are any, no, I don't find any Sikhs. Otherwise I would have said Sat Sri Akal as well. Oh.
You see, it's not in the male line.
Basically, what we should learn to understand is that there are 6 types of Indians. The North Indian, the South Indian, the East Indian, the Central Indian, the Western Indian, and the Anglo-Indian. There are 6 types. And I'm very happy to note, it's the only community having Indian behind it. There is no other community in the country that has got Indian behind it. And since we are talking about cultures, I just sort of, in my spare time, I have a lot of it. In my spare time, I play around with words and find out what they mean to me. Like the word actor or film. Film itself just means focusing in lens media one's conception. Then actor is ambition, courage, training, observation, and resourcefulness. Now the same thing with the word culture. It's character, unity, love, trust, understanding, respect, and education. We can add another alphabet to that and put D, which is discipline. That makes any community cultured. And since we are going to discuss about the culture and talk about Anglo-Indians, we've already heard what we are supposed to be. I am very happy, like the others, all the others, to say that I am very proud of being an Anglo-Indian. I find the Anglo-Indians, wherever you look, I wonder if anywhere in India you have seen any sort of procession other than a religious procession of Anglo-Indians. I don't think so. We are disciplined. E, the letter. The Anglo-Indians have been associated with education for time immemorial, shall we say. Because that's what it seems to me. I've been alive for time immemorial. And respect. We do have respect. We have respect for everyone, for everything. It's very casual. At times we may talk of a biological curry known as ball curry, but at the same time, we talk of so many other things which mean so much. We are respectful. We are understanding. There are so many cross marriages. Anglo-Indians, I myself am married to a Brahmin, Bengali Brahmin. There are so many Anglo-Indian girls and ladies who are married outside the community. We are truthful. I mean, I'm trying to be honest anyway. She's been very honest, he's been very honest, and I'm competing with them. And we are also, I only wish it could continue, quite united. We love the country. We are quite united, and we have our own character. That is the culture of the Anglo-Indians. That is how I refer to it, and that is how I think. There could be times, if one sits and reflects, you will find that some of the most efficient railway officers in the top echelons were Anglo-Indians. In the educational sphere, the number of schools that are run by Anglo-Indians, I'm not talking of headed by Anglo-Indians, but run by Anglo-Indians, is really commendable. If one looks at the defense services, the Anglo-Indians are there in the forefront. They fight as sipahis, they fight as lance naiks, they fight as naiks, subedars, jamedars, subedar majors, second lieutenants, and so on. And they even fly planes to knock down and kill those who have tried to infiltrate and commit war with us. They've done it in '65, the Keeler brothers, the entire group. They're all, of course, I'm very proud, from La Martiniere, since we are also from there. And I dare say that our devotion, our efforts to the country, I mean, look at the time when hockey gold medals used to come. It was between the Sikhs and the Anglo-Indians. Let's be very honest. Dhyan Chand was there. But there were also the Sikhs and the Anglo-Indians. If one looks at the first Olympic medal that was won by an Indian, it was an Anglo-Indian. I mean, these are things we've got to reflect on. And I'd be so happy. I have noticed, you know, when people refer to Anglo-Indians, very often they say, oh, he's an Anglo. Why don't they complete Anglo-Indians? Let them be proud of us. We are proud of them. They should be proud of us. We shouldn't be having to snivel around. Yes, in every community you have shirkers. In every community you have workers. I mean, irrespective of religion or caste or creed or whatever, you have it in all. And today, from the information I have, I think maybe you will agree with me, maybe you will, maybe many of you would. And that is that Anglo-Indians, even in private companies, they have, you know, graduated from being just the ladies, just being secretaries. We have them now as executives in so many big companies in the corporate world. So let's live like a united country. Anglo-Indians are a small community. There are smaller communities like the Parsis. I only wish they could also be included in Sanatkada. They have been, basically, I noticed. But I wish there was some more of them available here. It would have been so interesting. I mean, I've spoken a lot. I'm supposed to be a baker, but I'm talking. And he's supposed to be in far land. He's very close to us. And of course, Nero fiddled while Rome burned, but There's no one burning now. We are in a very lovely country. I think we should keep it lovely, don't you? So, anything from your side, particularly to the principals?
I just want to add a bit to what Mr. Baker said about respect for everybody. And I'm talking about respect for women. And I'd like to really commend the Anglo-Indian men. We Anglo-Indian girls and women dress in the shortest skirts with spaghetti tops and, you know, the way we want to. And when you go into an Anglo-Indian dance, we don't feel threatened, we don't feel prying eyes to that. And I have never heard of an Anglo-Indian man raping anybody or molesting anybody. And I think that we need to recognize that our Anglo-Indian men are respectful towards women. And that is something that the community stands for. And that's very, you know, unspoken, especially today. So it feels very comfortable. And many people also say, you know, that we're a dying community and we'll disappear, but I do not think so at all, because I've been involved with the All India Anglo-Indian Association for over 20-25 years, and every year we have an annual general body meeting in different parts of the country. And there are about 400 to 500 leaders from the community. We are a 140-year-old body with 65 branches across the country. And there's about 400 to 500 Anglo-Indians who lead the communities, right from small railway towns to big cities, who come there. And it just feels like we've all grown up in the same neighborhood. We've grown up with the same thing of climbing guava trees and wangling guavas.
Wangling out of school and getting guavas.
So it just runs through the system, and I think there's a very innate, I don't know what kind of connection to call it, but when a person is born in some country, there's something that happens to you. It becomes your motherland, no matter what you are. Maybe you can take the Anglo-Indian out of India, but you cannot take India out of an Anglo-Indian. That's the
It's true. You know, I have had, in the not too distant past, because I've been a member of parliament now for 7 months. During this time, I was very happy to receive calls from Australia, South Africa, from Canada, even from the US, where they have put a question to me which I felt very, very proud. They said, Mr. Baker, the situation at home. The Britishers used to refer to England as home. The Anglo-Indians are referring to India as home. The situation at home, we believe, is much more conducive to progress now. And we are seriously thinking of coming back home. Do you advise us to do so? I have asked them to come back en bloc. We'll do something. And with people like them contributing, I'm sure something will be done.
There are two things I'd like to add. One is, I disagree rather fervently with Vinisha. It's not that the men are respectful in the Anglo-Indian community. It is because Anglo-Indian women are formidable. Don't for a moment believe that the men have been house-trained or have been brought up well by their mothers. We still ogle at women, okay? Just forget it. But the Anglo-Indian woman is formidable. I'm an old Lucknow hand. I see many people here whom I know socially as well. if you knew my mother, okay, she was an Anglo-Indian woman, and I know my father towed the line because of that. All right? But yes, I will agree with Vinisha. And I think it required a lady to be able to remind us this, that if you want a model of good behavior between men and women, actually see how the Anglo-Indian couples get on. Yes, they will fight. They might even take their fight out and make it public. Yes, they will divorce. Yes, they will separate, but because they have the courage to do so. Right? There is a certain honesty. Okay? If something's not working, don't be stuck in a loveless marriage. Right? Move on. But when you are there, okay, each person has an independent right. I'm not advising you to follow it, but what I am saying is that this is indeed a kind of model, right, wrong, good, bad. But it is definitely symbolic of the equality that lies between the sexes over here. I'd like to, in inverted commas, educate you a little more about background. Mr. Baker has been ticking off for us, okay, achievements. And it's always nice to do that. You could even do a Google search and it will take you to Wikipedia, which will tell you prominent Anglo-Indian personalities. It will give you lists of people. Okay? What I want to humbly share with you, however, is that all achievement, even the achievement of being an executive, which to me is not really an achievement, okay, is something which had to be struggled for. And it is because of the composition of the community at the time when this community was still in an amorphous state. Let's consider. Vinisha just now described male progenitor, habitually resident in India, and well, that the female is to be from within the territory of India, presumably native, whatever native means in this context. In short, if you were married, it is good. If you were not married and you were the product of an illicit liaison between a European officer and his ayah, you would also be an Anglo-Indian. Okay? Let's speak honestly. Many of the Anglo-Indian community were born on the wrong side of the blanket. But that's the way we are. Right? And this contributes in part to the chip on the shoulder which I told you about. The second thing which you must know about the community is that it was a community which was generated and created as a community of service, not of leadership. The leaders were always European, or the leader was always traditionally native Indian of very high status. So you could have the Skinners and the Hodsons leading armies, but they would be leading armies for a Nawab. And when the British brought infrastructure to India, good, bad, right, wrong, that's another matter, there were people who had to liaise between the European Sahar and the ordinary worker who is just now thrown a bit of steel outside. Who did he get? He got the Anglo-Indian, which is a created community. Right? A created community to do this liaison work. I'll not call it dirty work, but the liaison work. And so look at it. If we are very proud that it is the Anglo-Indian who ran the Indian Railway, it is true. Because remember, nobody else could. Okay? The natives were too busy believing that the steel tracks were winding up the earth, all right, and that it would crush the earth, or that telephone wires were also going to eventually wrap around everybody and destroy them. Okay, there's kinds of crazy superstitions. So therefore, the service industry, right, was completely manned by the Anglo-Indian. The telegraphs, complete Anglo-Indian. The telephones, complete Anglo-Indian. Nursing. How could you let your women touch a body, and that to a man? Right? And so you have this community of Anglo-Indian nurses, okay, who are beyond caste. Okay, so whether you belong to the lowest of castes or whether you may be a Biswa Brahman, okay, it doesn't make a difference, because I am trained to look after the human body. Right? So, if you notice, some of the professions which I've talked about, and these indeed are the professions where largely Anglo-Indians made a mark and continue to make a mark, they are all professions which are of service and not of leadership. You would not have an Anglo-Indian promoted to lead discussion in Parliament, when Parliament did come about, of course. One had to fight for it. Right? You would not have an Anglo-Indian setting up an entire industry. He was not trained for it. Then what was he trained for? He was trained for these liaison tasks, which he did extremely well. Now what happens? With changing and fluctuating social balances, these are realities of history, and they don't need excuses. Okay, this is the way it is. Right? Some decided to move out of the country in 1947 because they felt that the sun was indeed setting on the British Empire. Right? And there is this huge diaspora which goes to different parts of the world, to Canada, to the UK, to Australia, the Americas, right, the Gulf. And there, because they have been brought up in a culture of service, they were able to convert that with opportunities, especially financial opportunities available, to establish things on their own. Those who stayed behind then had to compete for those very jobs for which they were so well trained. Remember, again look at constitutional history. The Anglo-Indian was given special privileges for 10 years in these service industries. Okay, this is a fact which is not generally well known. After 10 years, it went on for another 10 years, 20 years. And then that, in inverted commas, reservation ended. And now I'm going to say something which is not very politically correct. The Anglo-Indian would have been forgotten today. Okay? We would definitely not have even this many people in this marquee, right, to be able to discuss this, had not the definition that she just now quoted, 366.2, not been part of 366.1. And go back to your Constitution of India, and it will explain to you that 366.1 is what defines a scheduled caste. It is a political hot potato. You cannot remove the definition or remove the scheduled caste from Indian politics. And therefore, the Anglo-Indian remains protected because he is defined as point number 2 within that same article. It would otherwise be a political scandal that you now de-recognize this caste called the Anglo-Indian, and you keep this other caste because it is now politically viable. In a way, the survival of the community is based upon this inequity. Alright, it is unjust. On a much broader platform, there will be many who will say that reservations for castes are wrong. Just as if today the Anglo-Indian was to receive reservation in the railway, we would say it is wrong. But did receive this same reservation for 20 years, right up to 1970. Right? Because it was required at that time. Right? India has this fantastic ability of being able to, it's like the amoeba. Alright, your pseudopodia goes out and you are surrounded and you become part of that food vacuole. Alright, you are just sucked in. It's wonderful. Alright, and I say it's wonderful because that's what creates flexibility and fluidity within communities. Okay? When you have advertisements in the newspapers, and come on, shamelessly, you have done it as well for your daughters and sons, or maybe your parents did it for you, where you go to see which particular caste and gotra, alright, is to be selected for marriage. Don't talk nonsense about flexity and fluidity and the way in which we want to be united as Indians. This is crap. Alright? So, this community that sticks out, right reasons, wrong reasons, right, is a community that also has to be understood in context. And my last submission. The other reason why the community also has survived in the way that it has is because it has English as its mother tongue. Right? Again, whether this is right or wrong is another matter. Okay, it does seem pretty crazy that a huge country like ours should have such a mania for English, but it's there. Okay, it is there. Now, this is a reality. You can try and change it and have some Hindi Shatabdi and some Urdu as an associate first language and the kind of rubbish which we get on with politically. But the fact is, shamelessly, all of you will look for admission for your grandchildren into my school. Alright, and will probably tell me, yaad hai, we've met at that Sanatkada program. Alright? Now, this is what has kept, first of all, 100% literacy in the community. Right? 100% literacy. Second, it is a natural passport for opportunity. Right? Your grandchildren might have to learn the language. Okay? Our children speak it at home. So that is a natural advantage. And a person in India who speaks English generally doesn't starve. But I seem to be sounding apologetic. Why should I be using the word starve to describe something of my community? My community should be above mere survival. My community should be a community that flourishes because it has the finest features of that which is European and many of the good things that Europe gave India. And there's no denying it. Okay? There are fantastic things, including the English language, which we have used here all afternoon. As well as those who have adapted to the finest things that Indian culture from different parts of the country have provided to us. She comes from the south and speaks a language in the south that I don't know. Okay? He comes from the east and speaks languages that I don't know. But all of us speak English. All of us are Anglo-Indian. So we have both English as our language and a local language or languages, as in his case, which give richness and wealth to his family, to my family, to her family, which makes it different and makes it wonderful. It's a wonderful experience, but it cannot be replicated. It cannot be replicated. It can, however, be shared. Thank you.